Husky fans, welcome to our newest segment called Iceside, presented by The Rink Live. I'm your host, Rachel Herzog, alongside the one and only Mick Hatton. And we're going to talk about everything SCSU hockey as St. Cloud State starts their journey through the NCAA tournament. Now, Mick, before we even touch on the NCAA tournament, I kind of wanted to talk about the last weekend in the playoffs for St. Cloud State right here in the Herbrooks National Hockey Center against Minnesota Duluth. I think it was kind of something nobody really expected. We were hoping that was going to go to a 3-game series, something we expected from a Bulldog St. Cloud State matchup. I just wanted to know what your synopsis was on that weekend.
Yeah, I think if you watched those two teams during the regular season, you definitely thought that one, it was going to go 3 games, and two, probably all 3 games are going to go overtime. So that was kind of my thought going in. They did not play very well in the Friday night game. They had some untimely penalties, which has been an issue for them. And then they did not play well the rest of that game. On Saturday night, came out with a house of fire. Ryan Fanti from UMD really kind of kept them in it with some amazing goaltending. I mean, he had 19 saves in the first period. They played a little too cautiously. And gave up a couple of power plays, didn't kill them off. And UMD just took it up another notch and said, we're done.
And talking about St. Cloud State going into this tournament, they kind of have that record that's teeter-tottering on whether or not they should have gotten into the tournament. But we talked about it before, how strong of a schedule they played this season. Can we touch a little bit on that throughout the NCHC and in non-conference play as well?
Yeah, you can look at it and say, they're 18, 12, and 4. Okay, but yeah, they've had the second toughest schedule in the country. So that plays into it. I mean, when you play Minnesota State, Mankato, Minnesota, Bemidji State, all teams that were in the tournament last year in your non-conference schedule, that's going to make things a lot tougher for you. Only a few teams have beaten Minnesota State, Mankato. St. Cloud State's one of them. These are all teams that have made the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, their schedule has been really tough.
And talking about those non-conference games, we're talking about Minnesota State, Bemidji State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all from the Midwest. And we're talking about a team that we're going up against, the Bobcats out east. Do you think there's a big difference between playing styles from, say, the NCHC versus the ECAC per se?
With the ECAC, maybe not quite as much, but I think, if you're looking East Coast versus, maybe out West, which is what we're considered, which seems strange. But if you're talking about the differences there, I think, the NCHC teams are a little bit older, generally speaking, a little bit bigger and stronger than a lot of the teams maybe out east. A lot of the teams out east are a little bit younger. Now, with ECAC teams, they tend to be a little bit older than maybe, say, a lot of the teams at Hockey East. Right. But this was not a great season for Hockey East. Just in terms of teams making the NCAA tournament, which we're not used to seeing. But a real strong showing out west here with two CCHA teams, 3 teams from the Big Ten and 5 from the NCHC.
And diving in a little bit more with Quinnipiac too, you touched on it a little bit already. Really strong goaltending, shutdown defense like we kind of saw from UMD. They've only given up 1.1 on average goals per game and only given up 42 goals. Through 40 games, their records, I think, 31, 6, and 3 or so. Yeah. So you kind of touched on it already, but since St. Cloud State kind of struggled against UMD, what is it going to take to find more success and get to that second game out in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is they don't want to play not to win, or not to lose, excuse me. That was something that they did really well in the regional last season. It was 6-2 and 4-1. Those were games that they kind of kept pushing all the way through both of those games. That's what they need to do if they're going to win.
So we've talked about how we need to kind of attack more, not get behind the play and just continuing to press on as the game goes on. And a big area that St. Cloud State has found success so far this season is within their power play, but it's kind of been up and down here in the second half of the season. I'm pretty sure they're still sitting atop the nation with the best power play in the country, but How are they going to maneuver that and use that to their strength moving into the weekend?
I think, one of the biggest things, you say a little bit of up and down. I mean, some of that was because Nick Perbix, was out of the lineup going to the Olympics. When Nick Perbix is running that top power play unit, they're a different team. He's a difference maker for them on the power play. When they're moving the puck well, like they can, they're a very difficult team. That's going to be an interesting thing. They need to convert on the power play. They had 7 shots on that last power play against UMD in overtime, and one of them hit the crossbar and everything else. They almost got there. You got to find a way to bang that in.
Mick, I got to ask you, who is your player to watch?
Well, my player to watch is going to be David Reddick. Hopefully, David's going to be able to play. He was the MVP of the regional tournament last year. Goaltending is absolutely huge. You need that experience in these situations, and he's a guy that can change a game.
Yeah, Brett Larson has been talking about all season how happy he is with how consistent David has been throughout the season, and he really is starting to take it seriously with his last year here at St. Cloud State, and it's obviously shown. So I think, with our fingers crossed, he's going to be playing with us here on Friday. But if I'm going to pick a player, I don't even know if you were going to ask me if I wanted to pick a player.
Go ahead and pick a player.
But I am going to go with a shot in the dark and do Kyler Kupka. I think he's been on that top line all season long. He hasn't shown up a ton on the score sheet, but he's contributed a lot to their offensive pressure. He's really good within the corners, and he gets the puck to his line mates, who usually are the ones showing up on the score sheet. So I'm hoping that in this run in the NCAA tournament, he kind of gets rewarded for the efforts that he's had so far this season, and I think his time has come.
Yeah, he's a guy that, there's another guy, when he gets to the front of the net, he's pretty tough down there. He's played a lot with Micah Miller and with Kevin Fitzgerald. There's a reason why those guys are some of the top plus minus people on the team. It's because they're playing most of the time in the other end, and he's been a big part of that.
All right, well, we're cheering for David Rennick, we're cheering for Kyler Kupka, but overall, we're really hoping the St. Cloud State team can really make a push, especially in this regional. They're in a tough one out in Allentown, Pennsylvania, but are you headed out there?
I am headed out there. I will be leaving on Wednesday, so I'll have a live blog out there, and I'll cover all 3 games, no matter how they turn out, so people should check that out.
All right, you guys, so make sure you check out Mick Hatton's blog at therinklive.com, but also make sure you tune into the game on Friday night, as it is set for 7 p.m. Central, and it's going to be all on ESPN News. And Mick, I think we're going to be right back here for episode 2 of Iceside after a couple wins, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
That's the plan?
That's the hope.
All right, so if we're here, you guys are here, so we'll see you next week.